The room was alive with laughter and clinking glasses, but I felt like I was standing outside of it, watching everyone through a pane of glass I couldn't break. My daughter, Anna, radiant in her engagement dress, moved through the crowd like sunlight through fog. Everyone smiled at her, toasted her, admired her, and yet, somehow, I couldn't shake the unease curling in my chest. It wasn't the usual fatherly jitters. It was something colder, something sharper. As her fiancé, Daniel, raised his glass for a toast, his eyes gleaming with what the world would call charm, I noticed her lean toward me. Her voice was so soft I almost thought I imagined it. "Dad, investigate him." The words hit me like ice water. Not in the way a father questions a stranger, but in the way you stumble upon a secret too heavy to ignore. I knew Anna. I had raised her from the tiny, scrappy little girl who used to sneak chocolate from the pantry and hide it under her bed. She was careful, thoughtful, cautious. If she whispered that to me, there was a reason. I kept my expression neutral, pretending to sip my drink as she straightened, laughing politely at Daniel's joke. But her words burned behind my eyes. Something about him didn't sit right, though I couldn't name it yet. Daniel was easy with people, his smile disarming, his gestures smooth. He had mastered the art of making you think you were the only person in the room that mattered. That was the kind of man who could hide almost anything. We moved through the evening like actors on a stage, the kind of show where everyone knows their lines but no one knows the truth. I watched Daniel talk to my friends, the way he subtly manipulated the conversation to make himself look admirable, intelligent, trustworthy. My heart tightened. I wanted to call it paranoia, but Anna's warning was lodged in my thoughts like a jagged stone I couldn't spit out. I remembered the first time she'd introduced him. He'd been polite, charming, the kind of man you'd immediately like, or so the world would think. But even then, there were little things, the way he avoided eye contact when I asked simple questions about his past, the way his stories occasionally faltered under casual scrutiny. I had dismissed it at the time, telling myself that maybe I was overprotective. That's what fathers do, right? We build walls where none exist, invent shadows in sunlight. But tonight, watching him toast my daughter, I couldn't ignore the shadow growing between us. Anna caught my gaze across the table. Her eyes were calm, almost serene, but I could see the tremor in her hands as she clutched her champagne flute. She trusted him enough to stand by his side, but she trusted me enough to warn me. That duality was unbearable. I wanted to reach her, pull her close, and tell her I would protect her from anything, even if she didn't know what danger looked like yet. Daniel raised his glass, and everyone followed suit, toasting to love, to the future, to happiness. I lifted mine mechanically, tasting the cold metal of unease. I studied him, memorizing the way his lips moved, the subtle shifts of his posture, the little tics he probably didn't know he had. Fathers have instincts. Mine were screaming. Later, during the reception, I watched him dance with Anna. His hands were firm but respectful, his smile constant, and yet, I couldn't shake it. There was something rehearsed in the way he moved, a precision that hinted at intention rather than spontaneity. Anna laughed, the kind of laugh that makes a father's heart swell, but I couldn't enjoy it. Every chuckle, every twirl, was a reminder of the warning she had given me. I had to believe her, had to prepare myself, even though I had nothing tangible yet. The night grew darker, the music softer, and we found ourselves stepping out onto the terrace. The city lights sparkled below, distant and cold. Anna leaned against the railing, her engagement ring catching the light, a beautiful trap I wanted to shield her from. I kept my voice low, careful, as though the words themselves might shatter the illusion of safety. "Dad, you know him well enough to know something's off," she said again, softer this time. Her hand grazed mine, a fleeting warmth that reminded me why I had to listen. "I can't, I just feel it. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm imagining things, but please, just look into him." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. She didn't ask for revenge, for confrontation, or even for proof. She only asked for awareness, vigilance. That small plea anchored me, gave me a mission I couldn't ignore. I had raised her to trust, to believe in people, but I had also taught her to survive, to see beyond appearances. Now, all that training collided in one whisper on a night that should have been pure celebration. And then, as if the universe wanted to test me further, Daniel appeared behind us, placing a hand lightly on Anna's shoulder. His voice was smooth, warm, almost too perfectly casual. "Everything okay out here?" Anna's smile didn't waver, but I noticed a tiny hesitation, a micro-expression no one else would catch. My mind catalogued it. A flash, a second too long before the smile returned, a tension in her jaw. It was almost imperceptible, but I saw it. And I knew that she had seen it too. Yes, everything's perfect, she said, her voice ringing with practiced ease. But I could feel the weight behind her words, the unspoken warning echoing in the space between us. Daniel didn't linger long, but his presence lingered like smoke, the kind that clings to your clothes and your hair, impossible to ignore. I wanted to confront him, to ask the questions festering in my mind, but I restrained myself. Part of me was still tethered to logic, to the reality that accusations without evidence are dangerous. But another part, a deeper, older part, whispered that caution had its own dangers. The night wore on, laughter and music blending into a blur. I observed, listened, memorized. Every word Daniel spoke, every glance, every subtle gesture, I filed away. Fathers have a way of doing that, turning moments into dossiers, smiles into evidence, laughter into clues. And tonight, I was gathering every single one. As the evening drew to a close, Anna came to me again. Her eyes were wide, vulnerable, yet resolute. "Dad," she whispered, almost inaudibly, promise me you'll pay attention. Not just to what he says, but everything." I nodded, swallowing the bitter taste of fear and resolve. I would watch, I would wait, I would protect her, even if it meant discovering truths that could shatter her world. And just as I felt a semblance of control, just as I convinced myself that vigilance was enough, I caught Daniel watching me across the room. His gaze was steady, unreadable, and it lingered longer than necessary. There was a shift in the air, subtle but undeniable, like a storm gathering on a horizon too calm to notice. I didn't yet understand it, but instinct screamed that it was the first thread of a betrayal yet to unfold. And in that moment, I realized, this was no longer just about celebration. This was the beginning of a test I hadn't signed up for, a test of trust, of love, of loyalty. And the worst part, the hardest part, I didn't yet know which side of the test my daughter was on. I didn't sleep that night. Not a single hour. My mind replayed every smile, every word, every glance from Daniel. The smallest details gnawed at me, the way he complimented my daughter, just a little too perfectly, the way he always seemed to know the right thing to say without anyone noticing. My gut screamed, my instinct screamed, but I had nothing concrete. Nothing tangible, just shadows and whispers. The next morning, Anna was bright and cheerful, full of wedding planning energy. She laughed at little things, shared lists of flowers, venues, and catering options. I followed her quietly, careful not to let my tension show. Fathers learn to hide fear in plain sight, but hiding suspicion was harder. And then, Daniel called. He wanted to take Anna shopping for dresses, just the two of us, he said, his tone casual, effortless. My skin crawled. My daughter trusted him, and I couldn't stop her, but I made a suggestion anyway, one that sounded innocent. "Why don't we go together? The three of us?" He laughed, light and easy, but there was a flicker in his eyes I couldn't ignore. "Oh, I didn't want to cramp your style," he said smoothly. But the corner of his smile lingered too long, almost rehearsed. Almost knowing. Later that day, while Anna tried on gowns, I wandered through the small boutique, pretending to look at fabrics and shoes. I noticed the way Daniel's hand brushed hers, the subtle way he guided her, always steering conversations, always inserting little compliments that sounded innocent but felt calculated. I couldn't explain it, but it was like watching a magician, every gesture perfect, every move deliberate. And then came the first undeniable sign. Daniel excused himself to take a phone call, stepping just out of earshot. I overheard fragments, softly spoken words, his voice measured, almost careful. "She doesn't suspect, keep it quiet, not yet." I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. Did I mishear? Could it be unrelated? But the tone, the cadence, the weight of those words, it was deliberate. I had been right to feel uneasy. Something was happening behind the mask of charm, behind the smiles. When he returned, his expression was smooth, unreadable. Anna didn't notice, or if she did, she didn't question it. I forced myself to smile, to appear casual, but inside I was a storm. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but I knew that would tip my hand too soon. Anna's safety, her emotional safety, was the priority. I needed proof, or at least understanding. That night, at home, I tried to talk to Anna casually. I asked about the day, about the dresses, about Daniel's behavior. She laughed, oblivious to my anxiety, and that laughter was both balm and blade. She trusted him blindly, and the idea that someone could hide intentions from her, manipulate her, made my blood run cold. I just don't want anything to ruin your happiness, I said carefully, letting the warning linger without naming names. She touched my hand, warm and trusting. I know, Dad, I'm safe, I can handle him. Her confidence was beautiful, and terrifying. I wanted to shield her from everything, even if it meant seeing the darkness before she could. Days passed. I started paying closer attention. Small things began to reveal themselves like cracks in glass. Daniel had patterns, subtle, almost imperceptible. He'd ask questions about our finances under the guise of curiosity, steer conversations toward family connections, hint at investments and opportunities. I filed every word away. My instincts, once a vague unease, were now a steady hum of warning. One evening, we were at a dinner with family friends. Daniel's charm was on full display, polite, witty, generous with compliments, but then he made a comment that froze me mid-bite. You know, with your father's connections, Anna could really help me with my business ideas. The phrase, help me with my business ideas, sounded innocent enough, but the subtext was clear. He was already calculating, already planning. My daughter, naive and trusting, was the perfect conduit. And the way he smiled at her while saying it, it wasn't love. It was strategy. I excused myself under the pretense of a phone call and stepped outside. The cool night air did little to calm me. I realized, with a sinking clarity, that this wasn't just a relationship. This was a carefully constructed performance, and I had just begun to catch glimpses behind the curtain. Anna came outside after me, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. Everything okay, Dad? Just needed some air, I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. But inside, I was plotting, analyzing, observing. Fathers have instincts, and mine were screaming. I couldn't protect her yet, not directly, but I could prepare. I could watch, I could wait, and then, in that quiet moment under the streetlights, Daniel appeared at the door, calling for Anna. He smiled at me, the same disarming smile, the same calculated charm. But now I saw it for what it was. Not a smile of love, but a mask of intention. I watched him guide her back inside, hand on her back, voice soft and persuasive. My stomach churned. I knew something was coming, a breach of trust, a manipulation, a subtle betrayal that would shake everything Anna believed about him. But I didn't yet know when, how, or in what form. All I knew was that the countdown had begun. And as I watched the door close behind them, I understood with perfect clarity that the story of Daniel and Anna was about to change forever. And when it did, I would be ready. Because betrayal, once it begins, cannot be unseen. And once it touches my daughter, nothing will ever be the same.